All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. I also would like to give double honors to our apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that do rule well through the Holy Spirit. And I want to say peace, blessings, and salutations as always. Of course, greetings, etc., that are unto you elect, who are scattered throughout the four winds of this earth, fulfilling your lots in all truth and all sincerity. I'm the brother Sha'ar from the Great Millstone Dallas branch, coming to you all with another lesson which is inspired by the Holy Spirit. And Lord willing, this lesson here will be edifying to the flock. And what I want to touch up on today, just was reading up on a few scriptures, and through the Spirit, I wanted to talk about this topic, but I wanted to go into the wheats and the tares and also the rapture. I want to go into the wheats and the tares and also the rapture. And the reason why I want to talk about this, because as we obviously know, there are new brothers and new sisters that are being converted into this knowledge. And for those of us that were in or under, I'd rather say, Christianity, as we were blinded as for such a period of time. All right. But we were in Christianity. There were a lot of are a lot of false teachings under Christianity. Most of it's false. Most of it is tied behind idol worship. All right. And it leaves a lot of room for gray areas and also mediocrity. Golly, mediocrity. OK, excuse me. But it's a lot of mediocrity that's within Christianity. All right. And there's no way of getting closer to the Lord under Christianity, because one, the Lord gave his word unto Jacob and his statutes unto Israel. He has not dealt so with any other nation, as is written of in Psalms 147. And when you look at Christianity, they'll tell you everybody can make it, which is not the case. All right. And again, as I stated earlier, they go off on many things, but one thing out of the many that they go off on is the rapture. And they'll tell you that, there's going to be a period of time where there's going to be a small number of Christians that end up ascending, which is true. You're going to have the small remnant that is going to be translated, as the scriptures do say. But they tell you afterward there's going to be a 7-year period where it's going to be hell on earth, where the Antichrist is going to rule. You even have certain people calling Donald Trump the Antichrist. And then after the 7 years, that's when the Lord's complete judgment is going to come, and if you ain't a good old Christian within those 7 years, then you're going to go to hell. All right. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more to it. And when you think about it, that the so-called Christian has this belief, which we obviously know that they ain't right, but we going to see when Jacob's trouble truly comes and all hell really breaks loose, and these so-called Christians are going to be looking up, expecting for that first wave of people to get delivered up, and it's not going to happen the way that they want. They're going to see that the Lord's not dealing with them. They're going to clearly see it, even as you read it in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. Matter of fact, let me go in and get it, because so-called Christians are going to be the main ones that are going to be running to get the MOTB. They're going to be the main ones panicking and such. And we've seen it 4 years ago. I love to bring that example out. For those of you all that listen to my lessons, y'all know I bring that out all the time, because we seen that. And a lot of your relatives and such that are diehard Christians, the ones that voted and everything, they ran over there and they got that jab. So just as they ran and got that jab, they're going to do the same exact thing when tribulation comes and all hell breaks loose, especially when they're going to see that it's not going to happen the way that they expected. But when you read this in Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter, matter of fact, I'm going to actually start at the end of chapter 4, because it does segue into the beginning of the 5th chapter. But this is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, and I'm going to start at verse 16 and read down. And it says, "Thus the righteous that is dead shall condemn the ungodly which are living, and youth that is soon perfected, the many years of old age of the unrighteous. For they shall see the end of the wise, and shall not understand what the Most High and his counsel hath decreed of them, and to what end the Lord had set them in safety, All right. So you're going to have an unbelieving people, and you have a lot of so-called Christians that claim to be believers. But again, they're going to truly see that they're the unbelievers that the scriptures talks about. And not even just them, but the wicked of our people, you know, people that are floating around that are atheists. The scriptures say it when you read it in 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter, in the 22nd verse. It says, let the multitude perish that is born in vain. So within this multitude, you're going to have antichrists in the form of Christians. You're going to have Hebrew Israelites that are wicked. You're going to have atheists. All right. It's a large multitude that is going to perish in the days that are going to come. And the Lord is only going to aid that small remnant. All right. And in the midst of that, there's not going to be a second wave of believers that get beamed up. All right. Now, I will say this. You do have elect that are going to get beamed up, and you are going to have elect that are still going to be here. All right. You have elect that are still going to be here, but as the elect descend, all right, we're going to be able to discern between the righteous and the wicked. All right. And how those remnant get saved and delivered and brought into the land. We're going to know what it's by the time the kingdom comes. All right. We know that we're going to be brought into the wilderness. Large influx of Israelites are going to be in the wilderness. So the Lord has a very interesting way of how he's going to save and deliver. But it's not going to happen the way the so-called Christian says. All right. It's not going to be that first wave and then the believers that have the opportunity to prove themselves. At the end of the day, the elect are going to be the elect. All right. You got the elect that are going to be delivered and called into the air. But it's not going to be in the way that the so-called Christian church goes into, as they consider the rapture. Okay. Now I'm going to go back into this verse, and it says in verse 17, for they shall see, verse 18, they shall see him and despise him, but the Most High shall laugh them to scorn, and they shall hereafter be a vile carcass. And this is going into the wicked and a reproach among the dead forevermore. All right. For he shall rend them and cast them down headlong. And it's not going into them burning in hell forever. This is the judgment the Lord is going to give to the wicked as the righteous gets delivered, especially out here in Babylon, because Babylon is going to be burned with fire. And in Babylon is the elect going to be delivered in the air. And not even just in Babylon. You got elect Israelites that are going to be delivered everywhere. But the Lord's snares and judgments are going to rain down predominantly on Babylon, which is America. So when you read this verse here, it's safe to know that the bulk of this and the biggest portion of this is going into Babylon. All right. So it says, they shall see him and despise him, but the Most High shall laugh them to scorn, and they shall hereafter be a vile carcass and a reproach among the dead forevermore. For he shall rend them and cast them down headlong, and they shall be speechless. And he shall shake them from the foundation, and they shall be utterly laid waste, and be in sorrow, and their memorial shall perish. And when they shall cast up the accounts of their sins, they shall come with fear, and their own iniquity shall convince them before their face. Just as Yahushua said, in that day there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. All right, and it's all going to happen at the same time. All right, as soon as the elect get delivered, there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth for the people that are here to see it. The wicked. All right, the wicked that are going to see it. And that segues into the next verse. Into the next chapter and the next verse. Okay. So when you read this in Wisdom of Solomon 5:1, it says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness. All right. So as you see the wicked being cast down, as they're brought down, as they're afflicted, because this is when all hell is breaking loose. All right. You got wicked Israelites that are going to be in turmoil and straits. You have Antichrist, so-called Christians that are going to be in turmoil and straits. These people are going to have the jab. Not the jab, Salakia, but they're going to have the MOTB. And that's another thing, because if you take the MOTB, they try to bring up a whole tribulation period of 7 years. No, if you take the MOTB, that's it. All right. You're not going to be here, lingering around with the MOTB in your right hand or on your forehead, expecting salvation after 7 years. It's not going to work that way. All right. A lot of these people are going to have the MOTB in them. All right. So they're going to see the righteous get delivered, especially Israelites. And they're going to weep, lament, cry out. All right. Say, Lord, Lord, as you read about it in Matthew, the 25th chapter. All that's going to take place at the same time. OK. It says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond as they looked for. And they, repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit, shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision, a proverb and a reproach. We fools accounted his life as madness and his end to be without honor. And that's how the naysayers look at us. We're on the highways preaching, all right? As we go into the proper breakdown, they say we sound crazy. They say we're incorrect. Even as we cast down the strongholds that they have set up and have deceived many, all right? They think we're in the wrong and claim that we're in the wrong. But when this time comes, when this salvation comes, they're going to see it all together, who was right and who was wrong, all right? Especially those that have the MOTB, namely those, because again, you're going to have wicked Israelites that have it. You know, all of these so-called Christians are going to get it. All right. And many more. And again, if you're an Israelite and get the MOTB, there's no making it. All right. There's no making it. You're going to be through. OK, but all this is going to happen at the same time. Soon as the elect get delivered, there's going to be perils and destruction that are going to happen to Babylon, and also anguish in other parts of the earth. OK, and that's a cut to the whole rapture doctrine. Now, a so-called Christian will bring this scripture out here in the book of Luke, the 17th chapter. And I'm going to start at verse 31, and we're going to go into the meat and potatoes on why it's worded this way. And we have to start on where Yahushua is going into when the Son of Man is revealed. All right. And when the Son of Man is revealed, judgment's going to be happening on the earth and salvation. Well, remember, salvation has happened ample times within our history. All right. And you have the salvation that we still celebrate to this day, which is the Passover. And that is our exodus out of the land of Egypt. All right. And when we exited out of the land of Egypt, there wasn't no quick wave of Israelites that left, and then a period of time where the Lord had other Israelites in Egypt to get right. And then he eventually came back and delivered them, because the salvation that's to come at the end is likened to the salvation in ancient Egypt. The difference is we're going to be caught up in the air. We're not going to walk out by foot. There's not going to be no Red Sea splitting in two. The Lord is going to bring a miracle and call us up in the air, just as the scriptures do say. And this is when the Son of Man is revealed. And you also have another example of salvation with Lot and his daughters. When Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, they left. They fled out. All right. And everybody was destroyed in Sodom and Gomorrah. There was nobody else that was saved within that land. All right. And the salvation is likened unto that as well in the destruction. You have a small number, Lot and his daughters, that fled out and left out of the command of the angel of the Lord. But everybody else was burned up. All right. It wasn't no period of time where, they could repent. All right. And then flee out, and then the Lord burned Sodom and Gomorrah. No. So you have the exit out of Egypt, which is a great salvation, which the end of the world is likened unto. And you also have the exit out of Sodom and Gomorrah by Lot and his daughters. All right. And both of those examples are examples that are used for the end. And they're symbolically referenced in how the end is going to be. Now, when you read this in Luke, the 17th chapter, and he started verse 30, it says, even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. All right. And that's a day that we are waiting on currently. And we believe that day to be very close around the corner. And that's something that we are doing, being believers, Hebrew Israelites that believe, as we are hastening the day. We don't have our mind set toward this kingdom lasting forever, like a lot of other people that are here on this earth, including other Israelites, which is a shame. But anyway, we understand prophecy and how these things must come to pass. Now, back in Luke 17 and verse 31, it says, in that day, he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. And there's other verses that goes into that as well. And a verse that comes to mind is 2 Ezra, the 16th chapter. When you read starting around verse 40, it tells you can have a business, you can have marriages, you can have all these things as you're here in the land of captivity. But when it's time for the Lord to gather his elect up, You got to be as though you don't have a business. You got to be as, you don't have a wife. All right. If it comes down to it, because, again, certain of these wives are going to try to sell you out. All right. Or certain of them are going to be taken away. And then you're going to have to fully trust in the Lord, which you're going to have to trust in the Lord anyway, but it's going to have to be a whole nother level of trust and fear of the Lord that we're going to have in that day. OK, so you're not going to have time to go down there and gather certain things. All right. And even in our exit out of the land of Egypt, we did come out with great substance. So that was a little bit of a difference versus the salvation that's to come. All right. But when we get saved, even these bodies that we currently have aren't going to be in the chariots. There we're going to be changed and receive new bodies. All right. So you're not going to have no need to take anything with you, because everything that's going up in the chariot is spiritual. OK, verse 31 says this. Verse 32. Remember Lot's wife. And Yahushua uses this example for a reason, because Lot's wife turned back. All right. And when she turned back, she had the glitz and the glamour that came with Sodom and Gomorrah. All right. The freedom, the liberty, probably the clothing, the food, whatever. And she looked back. And when she looked back, she ended up getting turned to a pillar of salt. All right. So Yahushua was using the illustration of a man on a housetop waiting to be saved. And when you get delivered, you're not going to be able to look back and try to get those temporal things, just as Lot's wife tried to do. All right. So when you continue, it says, remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Two women shall be grinding together, and the one shall be taken, and the other left. Two men shall be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. And they answered and said unto him, Where, Lord? And he said unto him, Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together. All right. And what's that's pretty much just going into is when you look at, really, it's vultures. All right. It says eagles right here, but I believe when you go into the Greek, it's going into the vulture. Matter of fact, when you go into it, it says an eagle. Since eagles do not usually go in quest of carrion, this may be a vulture that resembles an eagle. All right. And those vultures hover over dead bodies. So if you see vultures circle around in the air, then you know that it's a dead body, or a body that's getting ready to die. All right. So that's a sign that's given. All right. Because again, they answered and asked him that question, and Yahushua gave an example going into the signs of the end. All right. Now, just to tackle this verse here, because a so-called Christian will bring up Luke 17, what I just read about two women grinding, or two men in the field, one shall be taken and the other left. But remember the illustration that's given in verse 32. He says, remember Lot's wife. All right. Now, the only way to remember Lot's wife is to remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And when Lot, his wife, and his daughters went to flee out, Lot's wife looked back. All right. And what did she look back to? One, she got turned into a pillar of salt. And that's something that we all know. But she also looked back at fire raining down from heaven, consuming everything that they've known. Everything, not, you know what I mean? Their home, everything that they've known. And it was nothing left. All right. So after he says, remember Lot's wife, he starts to go into an example of people that are saved and people that are left. And those people that are left behind are not going to just be left behind to linger. No, they're going to be left behind to die. That's what that's going into. All right. When Yahushua comes back, that is going to be the hour right there of reckoning. OK, again, it's not going to be a small little cluster that's there and everybody else has a chance and then they get beamed up in the air, like their whole rapture doctrine. No. All right. It's not going to work that way. Now, matter of fact, I said I'd bring this out. The parable of the sower, the wheats and the tares. And I'm going to bring that out. Now, when you read this here in Matthew, the 13th chapter, all right, Yahushua has given, he's pretty much given a speech or a sermon on the seaside. Him and his disciples got on a boat, and you have multitudes of people that gathered together to want to hear what he had to say. So he had an audience. And as he was speaking, he spoke a few different parables. He spoke about the famous parable of the sower and the seed that we all are very familiar with. All right. And when you read the verse where it says, the disciples asked, why do you speak unto them in parables? We got to remember they was on a boat with them, so we probably turned around and explained thoroughly to them, but they weren't going to be able to hear it because they were multitudes that was on the shore. All right. So he explained the parable of the sower and the seed. And then afterward, he goes into another parable. And this second parable is going into what's called the wheats and the tares. And mind you, it's all at the same time while he's giving his sermon on the boat. So he says this right after the sower and the seed parable. Okay, so let's go on and read this here in the book of Matthew, the 13th chapter. And let's start at a good point here. So I want to start at a good point. Let's go on and start at verse 24. Because again, it's going into the wheats and the tares. All right. And also to understand this here, a lot of us don't know about farming. A lot of us don't know about husbandry. And when you read Yahweh's parables, he uses that example a lot of farming and husbandry. So he'll explain things and we have a general sense and understanding of what it means. But when you start to actually research, the process of husbandry when it comes to wheats and tares and such, it opens up your spirit to a whole nother level of the dynamic of salvation and what the Heavenly Father's intentions were as we were here. You got wicked Israelites floating around, you got wicked Christians floating around portraying themselves to be holy and such. You got wicked people that are claiming themselves to be the Israelites and are not, and then they're all backed behind the Bible. You have Islam and it's all backed behind, those are Abrahamic religions, so all that's backed behind the scriptures. But out of all of that, you actually have the truth that's within that. All right. But we all have a Bible. We all read from the Bible. The Muslims, they have their Quran, which really, stems from the Bible. All right. But more so when you look at it, the wheats and the tares, it talks about how they were all sown together in a field. And let's bring this out here in Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. Because when you read this verse here, it's very transparent. It tells you, according to the way the so-called Christian brings out the rapture, when you read this parable of the wheats and tares, it clearly tells you it's impossible to be done that way. All right. And let's just go back into it. This is Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. And it says, another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which soweth good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, and it's talking about the blade of grass or the blade of wheat, I'd rather say. All right. So it says, but when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So you got to get, understand the illustration of this big field. All right. And you got this good husbandman that planted down, wheats. But then at night, you had the wicked that planted down seeds as well among the wheats. But these seeds were tares. And when you look at a wheat and a tare, especially in the years of their nativity, when they first spring up in the field as, little wheats and tares, you can't tell the difference between the two. All right. A baby wheat looks just like a baby tare, looks just alike. All right. And that's what it's explaining right here. When it was sown, when it became a blade and sprung up, and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares. All right. Now, one unique thing about wheats and tares is when wheat and tares come up of age, then they do start to look a little different. All right. And you notice the wheat start to have husks, because those husks, is pretty much, where you get the bread from. OK, when you're in the process of winnowing wheat. All right. And you actually have the threshing tool and you're smacking, the threshing tool against the wheat. All right. You have the actual, the corn, well, not the corn, but, the fruit that gets separated from the husk. All right. So that wheat is holding fruit. And when wheat is come up of age and it holds that fruit kind of bears it down to the point where wheat arches, kind of like a bulrush in a sense. So when you look at the visual of an adult blade of wheat, it's actually grown up and hunched over a little bit because of the fruit that it bears. And you look at it symbolically with the illustration of those that bear fruit. For you brothers that are preaching, that are doing the work, the scriptures say that greater thou art, the more humble thyself. So certain of us deal with ailments, certain diseases. Satan messes with us in many different ways, but these are things that we have to bear for the sake of the elect. These are things that we must bear for the sake of the elect. So when you look at the illustration of wheat, and as it bears fruit, it's holding that fruit and is leaned over a little bit. And that's what an adult wheat will look like. But when you look at a tare, as it comes in its age, it stands up straight. It's not hunched over, and it doesn't bear fruit. Now it has little black seeds, but the black seeds are very small. All right. And that there gives an illustration of pride, puffed up, heady, and high-minded, versus the wheat, which is hunched over, gives an illustration of being lowly, and that's the illustration between the tares and the wheats. And you have a lot of people, all right, within the world of Israel that are very proud. They boast themselves in the law. You have so-called Christians that are floating around that's proud as all hell. People like Vocab. Again, they'll tell you that, you have a scoffer that came out to the main camp some months ago. We call him Mr. I Don't Know. But when the whole rapture thing was brought up, I'd rather say when salvation was brought out in destruction and tribulation, he said it in a very proud manner. I'm not going to be here anyway when that time comes. When the Lord brings the elect up, it's going to be tribulation at the same time. The elect ain't going to escape the tribulation that's to come in the sense of not seeing it at all. All right. The elect are going to experience tribulation. Matter of fact, really quick before I continue this parable here in Matthew the 13th chapter, you read it in Revelation 3, and it talks about an hour that's to come where all of us are going to be tried. This is Revelation 3:10. And it says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. All right. So this hour of temptation is going to try everybody, including the elect, as the elect are here before the salvation comes, before the elect get beamed up. So the so-called Christian will tell you during the rapture, that's when the Christians will be delivered up and they won't have to experience the tribulation that's going to come. And that's an error, another error that they have according to the scriptures. And it's a very proud error at that, to say that you're not going to experience any tribulation when even the Messiah, the greatest man on the planet Earth, who they claim to believe in, they call him Jesus, which we know his name is actually Yahweh Shai. But even the greatest man to walk the earth had to suffer persecution and tribulation in the way that the Heavenly Father had intended on him to catch it. Now, granted, of the elect, you're going to have brothers and sisters that are going to receive more tribulation than others. You have scriptures that says the hair on the righteous head are not going to be harmed. But it doesn't change the fact that even though certain heads aren't going to be harmed, they're still going to be in a world and suffer tribulation. To deny the MOTB, you're going to suffer tribulation. The scriptures talks about us being cast into prison. That's tribulation. So all of these things are going to be happening. And in the midst of tribulation, all right, as the elect are being tried, as the whole world is being tried, the elect are going to be found worthy in that hour and are going to be delivered, while Babylon is going to be burned with fire, and other various parts of the earth are going to be in complete disarray. All right. And that's how it's going to take place. Now, back in Matthew the 13th chapter, going back into the wheats and the tares, it says in verse 27, so the servants of a householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? So he's asking the question like, why is there tares here if there was only good seeds that was sown? And he said unto them, an enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, wilt thou then go up and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheats with them. And something else I failed to mention pertaining to wheats and tares, when they're young, as I stated earlier, they even share the same root system. All right. So if you even try to pull up tares prematurely as they're sown amongst wheat, you can actually pull up the wheat as well and pull up the good things. So they have to come of age in order for the reapers to actually come and reap the tares out the way. That way you can actually look at it and see what the tare is and what the wheat is. All right. And we're in a time right now which we can clearly see through the spirit who the tares are. All right. But it's going to come to the point where every man's work is going to be tried, as you read it in 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter. And in that time, it's going to be proven who served the Lord in truth and sincerity and who's claimed to serve the Lord. All right. Just as I read earlier in Wisdom of Solomon 5, they're going to look at the righteous being delivered and be like, this is he. All right. That's the tares looking at the wheat in a sense. All right. Which namely starting with it, you know what I'm saying? The tares can be likened unto wicked Israelites, but hey, this whole world is like the threshing floor. Now, going back to this verse here, this chapter in Matthew chapter 13, verse 29, it says, but he said, nay, least while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Verse 30, let both grow together until the harvest. So this is the point right here where I want to get, because a so-called Christian will tell you you're going to have the people that are going to get gathered together, and then it's a 7-year period of tribulation. But those people that get brought up aren't going to have to experience the tribulation. All right. And then after the 7 years, the rest of the Christians that get converted are going to get cast up in the air as well. And then, everybody else is going to get thrown in hell. It's all type of confusion. But anyway, back in verse 30 says, let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares. So the tares by the reapers are going to get reaped. All right. As they come of age, the reapers are going to be able to determine, or distinguish, I'd rather say, not determine, but distinguish, all right, who the tares are and who the wheats are. Okay. So it says, gather together first the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now, remember, I read earlier in Luke 17, the 17th chapter, going into the illustration of remembering Lot's wife, what took place, why it says remembers Lot's wife, and right afterwards, how Yahushua went into one being left and one being taken. All right. Those that are left are going to be left for fire and judgment, especially here in Babylon. Okay. Especially here in Babylon, they're going to be left for fire and judgment. And over in the Holy Land, oh yeah, it's going to be fire and judgment over there too, pertaining to Ezekiel, the 39th chapter. Okay. Ham and Gog, read about that. Okay, so it's even going to be fire over there. But the difference is Babylon is going to be a wasteland and the Holy Land is going to be rebuilt back up. Okay, so the wicked are going to be burned. They're going to suffer tribulation. They're going to die off. Now, obviously, of course, the heathen, they're going to be thrown in captivity and such. It's not going to just be a overkill to the point where everybody's going to be dead and only going to be Israelites that are going to be left. Somebody's going to have to build up the kingdom. There's going to have to be heathen that are here to be bound in chains, and nobles to be cast in fetters of iron. So all that has to take place too, according to the Bible. But when Yahushua comes and makes his presence on the earth and brings the angels, the elect are going to be delivered, especially from Babylon. All right. And the wicked here in Babylon are going to be burned with fire. Wicked Israelites, so-called Christians, which are antichrists, atheists, other types of heathen that are here floating around. All right. It's only going to be the remnant of the nation of Israel, especially here in Babylon, that's going to be delivered in the air. Those are the wheats. Okay. Those are the wheats that bear fruit. Now, continuing back on in verse 30, let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles and burn them, but gather the wheats in my barn. So this is the harvest. And during the harvest, the wheats are going to be cast into the fire. The wheats are going to be taken and the tares are going to be cast into the fire. And it's going to be simultaneous. It's going to be simultaneous. Not according to a so-called Christian that tells you, first they're going to get saved and then 7 years of tribulation. They're not going to have to experience tribulation. But 7 years, all the other Christians got to experience, and then they're going to be brought up. It's not going to happen that way. All right. This harvest is a harvest. The wheats and the tares are going to be selected. One selected to be brought up and be meat for the master's use, and the other selected to be burned. And that's how it's going to take place. Okay. And even Yahushua further explains it when you jump down to verse 36. And it says, then Yahushua said to the multitudes away, sent the multitudes away, and went into the house. And his disciples came unto him, saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. So they was inquiring about that. They wanted to know, like, this is after his speech. This is after everybody goes into their places. This is when they at the crib now. So you can tell this is something that they were meditating on hard, to the point of asking him later on. And he answered in verse 37, and he answered and said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. You see that? So in this world, you have tons of bullshit, excuse my French, tons of false doctrines, tons of philosophies, even Israelites that think they right. That's all within this world. And it says the good seed are the children of the kingdom, all right, which are the remnant of the nation of Israel. Okay, I read earlier, or not read earlier, excuse me, but I did a prior lesson going into the children of the kingdom. And you can read about the children of the kingdom in Daniel, the 12th chapter. All right. Matter of fact, let me go in and pull that up really quick here in the book of Daniel. And it talks about the children of the kingdom. And it goes into who they are. Even in Hosea, the 1st chapter, it talks about, the children of the living power in that day. And it says, great shall be the day of Jezreel, which is translated seed of the power, or seed of God, right? Who are Israelites, who were a no people at a point of time, according to biblical prophecy. Okay, so let's go into this in Daniel 12, and let's jump straight to it here in verse 1. But it says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. All right, and this also will be one of the reapers, okay, because the angels are the reapers, as I'm going to go into. So as Michael, the angel, stands up, who is also a reaper as well, okay, because he's the host, he's the head of the host of the Lord's army. All right, and what do you think the Lord's army is going to do? They're going to reap. Okay, so it says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. All right, and that's that hour. You can read about that hour. I read it earlier in Revelation, the 3rd chapter, the 10th verse. This is the time of trouble that's to come. And it says, and at that time thy people shall be delivered. All right, so they're going to be delivered from trouble. All right, it's not going to be called delivered if you're not going to be in any type of trouble. It's not salvation if you're not being saved from any type of perils. All right, to be saved, you have to be saved from trouble. So to say that, I'm not going to experience any tribulation, we're not going to be here, it's a very proud statement. It's a very terror-like statement. Okay, so it says, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. All right, so that's what's going to take place. All right, when Michael the archangel stands up along with the rest of the angels, all right, it's going to be salvation that's going to happen. The elect are going to be redeemed. All right, and it says, all right, the children of thy people, which standeth for the children of thy people. And that was the point that I wanted. And the children of thy people are the children of the kingdom. All right, who are Israelites, by the way. Remember when the disciples asked Yahushua before he had ascended up back into the heavens, and they asked him, is it now this time to restore the kingdom of Israel? All right. So it's the kingdom of Israel. And in the kingdom of Israel, it is going to be ruled by the Israelites, starting with Yahushua. All right. And under him, it is going to be that remnant that gets saved and delivered. Okay. Starting with the 144,000 and then the rest of the third. All right. And then you're going to have other Israelites that are going to be saved from other various lands. Remember, the third only applies to the land of Babylon. So you're going to have other Israelites that are going to be delivered too from other lands. A large multitude. You can read about that large multitude in Revelation, the 15th chapter. You can also read about that large multitude toward the end of 2nd Ezra, the 2nd chapter. So it's going to be a large multitude of Israelites that are going to be delivered. All right, the children of the kingdom. So this is back in Matthew chapter 13, verse 38. And it says, the field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. All right. It says the enemy that soweth them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. You see that? So the reapers are the angels. And what are they going to do? They're going to reap. They're going to harvest the wheats, and the wheats are going to be delivered and saved. And they're going to, at the same time, simultaneously reap and cut through the tares, which are going to be made and set up for the fire, I'd rather say. So it says, as therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all the things that offered and them which do iniquity. All right. And that's what you can also read in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10, where it says, we shall all sit on the judgment, or we shall all be judged, all right, according to what we've done in our bodies, whether it be good or evil. Verse 42 says, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. All right. And you can read that detail of it in Wisdom of Solomon 5, what I read earlier. OK, so I'm going to end this lesson here in Revelation, the 14th chapter, and I'm going to start at verse 20. And it is the actual prophecy of the angels gathering together the wheats and severing the tares to be burned up. Now, this is Revelation chapter 14, verse 20. I'm sorry, not verse 20. Let me actually start at a better part. Yeah, let's go on and read this in verse 14, and I'm going to read down to verse 20. And it actually says the reapers, all right, when you look at it in the blue letter, all right, and when you look at it in the NLT, it says the harvest of the earth. All right, so the wheats and the tares is a parable pertaining to the harvest of the earth. All right, just as Revelation chapter 14, starting at verse 14. So it says, and I looked, and behold, a white cloud, which the white cloud is likened unto Yahushua and the angels coming. Okay, it says, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Now, what was read earlier in Matthew the 13th chapter, Yahushua talked about who the one that sown the good seed in the field was. Because remember, the field is the earth, and there were good seeds that were casted into that good field. All right, and he explains as he breaks that parable down to his disciples when they were in the house after his sermon. He explains that, the one that sown the good seed is the Son of Man. So here in Revelation 14, in verse 14, he's going into himself plucking up the wheats. All right, because he planted it, and he's eventually going to pluck up them to be delivered. OK, so it says, and in his hand a sharp sickle, and another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And what does that mean? It means that it's clear and evident to see who the tares are and who the wheats are by the angels, which they know anyway. But it's really just going into the fullness of time. That's what it's talking about. It ain't like the angels don't know who the wicked is and who the righteous are. No, they control the matters on the earth. So I want to, make sure I get that out there too. But this is going into, when everything is at its fullness, and it's time for this to happen. All right, it's time for the great deliverance to happen. And in the midst of that great deliverance, it is going to be a very mighty and great destruction. OK, and, again, the righteous are going to come out of great tribulation. When the Son of Man comes with the angels, we are going to be delivered out of tribulation. Lord willing, we're of that number. OK, so this is back in Revelation 14 and verse 16. And it reads, and he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple, which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. So even though it mentions grapes here, it is still the same illustration that's read in Matthew the 13th chapter. Yahushua just used the example of wheats and tares, but it still goes into the harvest being ripe, right, and ready to be plucked up. Verse 19, and the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, All right. And the vine of the earth, it says, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of the Most High. So that great vine was cast into that winepress, which that winepress is likened unto the fire that's to come. And Yahweh Shai also, when he comes down with the angels over there in the Middle East, has a lot of work he's going to do. And it's going to be a lot of death that's going to happen over there by the hands of Yahweh Shai and the angels, pertaining to Isaiah, the 63rd chapter. All right, you have the great war that's going to be happening in the Middle East. All right, and you can read about that in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. Okay, so it's going to be a lot of drama, a lot of stuff happening on the earth. And this is the day that we're waiting for. So it says that vine is going to be cast into that winepress, and you can read about that winepress in Isaiah chapter 63. So it says the great winepress of the wrath of the Most High in verse 20. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse's bridle, by the space, of 1,600 furlongs. All right, so it's just going into, how Yahweh Shai and the angels are going to come to bring to bring smoke, to hand out that issue. And this is all going in to the great harvest that the scriptures goes into. All right. So when that great harvest is going to be a simultaneous harvest. All right. It's not going to be a quick harvest, in the air and then 7 years of tribulation. But that first harvest, they had to experience no tribulation. And then it ain't going to be no second little harvest in the air. All right. It's not going to work that way. No, the harvest is the harvest. All right. And when the harvest takes place, you have the righteous that are going to be caught up. They're going to have the wicked. They're going to burn in Babylon, burn in other places, suffer tribulation. All right. And then the elect are going to come down. And that's Revelation chapter 21. And they're going to come down to a new world. And we're going to be brought over to the land. We're going to be taken to the land. All right. So I'm going to end it off on that. There was a few other verses, that I really wanted to go into, but I believe the point was made. It's already been almost 50 minutes. But I'm going to end it off on that. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well through the Holy Spirit. And peace and blessing and salutations unto you elect, who are scattered throughout the four winds of this earth, fulfilling your lots in all truth and all sincerity.